Welcome to Spirituality Gone Wild. I am Debbie G, and I am here with the extraordinary, the one and only TJ Woodward, conscious recovery, conscious being. He's just conscious everything. Welcome, TJ. Welcome back.
Thank you, Debbie. I really love that we set this time aside on Mondays to talk about how we can be more mindful and how we can be more conscious. So I'm always grateful for our conversations. One of the things I love is that we don't come in with any kind of preset agenda. We just open up to what wants to emerge. So I love that.
Isn't it fun? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I'm going to tell you guys. I don't know if you are over there listening to Conscious Recovery today and listening to TJ talk to, her name is Temple.
Uh-huh.
But some really great information was coming out, and I'd want to kind of dig a little bit into that because I'm like big into gratitude, and in order to get to gratitude, I've always felt like in order to get there, I've got to go through this forgiveness space, even though that's judgy, let's face it, and then I've got to go into this acceptance space, but that's still judgy, let's face it. Now I'm judging the judger and the judgy, but you said something today that blew that literally I just went into a frequency of yeah. You said, rather than acceptance, you said something else.
Yeah, I like to one of the ongoing jokes I have is that the one thing about writing books is the moment the book is published, it might not be how I would say it, right? And so
Yeah.
there are things I write in both of my books, Conscious Being and Conscious Recovery. And one of the terms that I use that many of us use is acceptance, but I have really started shifting that into allowance because I think there's a real different quality. Acceptance for me has a little bit of a there's a little bit of a judgment. Like, even though this is messed up, I'm going to accept it because I can't control it. I'm going to let go of the control in this. I'm just going to accept it for what it is. With allowance, we're actually inviting ourselves to move beyond the ego paradigm and move into like what gets created when I start to allow whatever is emerging. And that can be outside myself, but even more importantly, my own thoughts, my own points of view, my own perspective. When I can move into allowance, it starts to shift me into curiosity. Curiosity is where a shift can begin to happen internally and then ultimately externally as well.
That feels so good. Like I literally have truth chills all over.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. I want to say hi to David and hi everybody who's popping in right now. Patricia Kelly, you just got here. What's the subject? The subject is mindfulness. But if you have, and also, you know what? Anything that happens to come up, if you have any questions, audience, please feel free to post your comments as well as your questions. Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Yes, allowing and
Mm.
surrendering. You know, it's interesting too. The word surrender is fascinating because I think a lot of times we might think of surrendering to a situation or a person. We might even think of surrendering to the divine or a higher power of some sort. But I think the only real surrender that we need to make is a surrendering to the deep knowing of who and what we are, that we're each perfect expressions of source energy. When I have that surrender, I might surrender my egoic point of view, in other words, my thoughts about myself and the world are not as solid as I once believed. And when they're solid or they're fixed, nothing changes. So in some ways, it becomes profoundly simple. When I surrender to my true nature, my essential beingness, then I can start to recognize that my viewpoints, my opinions, my fixed ideas about the world maybe aren't as fixed as I once believed. And then I can start moving into curiosity. Curiosity creates expansion. Expansion creates change. And I'm sure all of us know by now, reality gets created by the way we view the world, much less about what's happening. So one way to change my point of view is to become curious rather than just being fixed in one way of seeing it.
Whew, I'm back. Oh, I love that. That was just okay. So, soul expansion time, everybody. Soul expansion time. What you're hearing is an up leveled version of where we were before. And what I'm loving here is like okay, so you wrote it in your book, but you are evolving and you're expanding and you're growing. And I love the beauty and how that you come forward and you say, well, wait a minute, I said it here, but now I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it like this. So I would encourage everybody to even if it isn't something that like you go, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Or even if you feel like, okay, yeah, I don't like that. I just encourage you to just allow yourself to sit. Just sit in the space of a new thought or sit in the space of a new shift of perspective because that's the mind in our tools of mindfulness in my book, in my world, we allow this allowance is just beautiful. We just sit in our mindfulness. We sit in that space. We just are. We just allow it to be. I mean, if we know we all say that, right? We just allow it to be. And now here we're going on to a whole expanded level instead of just accepting. And I love this because I don't know about y'all, but I've done things where, yeah, I'm not real thrilled about that. Nope, I'm just gonna have to accept it because that's just how it is. Oh my, do you think that's kind of like a spiritual bypass almost? I mean, I know people talk about that a lot, but
Well, I like to look at it for myself as a part of the path, right? So part of the path for me is acceptance. Like I've had to learn how to, because early in my evolution, if you will, or my growth or my conscious evolution, I wanted to control and resist a lot. So I realized that was creating more friction. That wasn't moving me where I wanted to move. So acceptance seemed to be like a really important part of the journey. But now I'm inviting myself to look at a deeper possibility. So it's not that this is wrong and now there's this, it's this and that. So, yeah, I use spirituality to bypass the deeper emotions. I used spirituality to bypass uh, being really accountable. Because ultimately, spirituality, and I mean this in the truest sense of the word, spirituality is accountability, not blame. Huge difference. So I am accountable when I recognize I create my own reality and I'm 100% accountable for what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, and how I'm contributing to that. That can be a point that could be really painful for some of us. As I say, nothing is more painful than 99% surrender. So when I'm at a place where, like, yeah, I create reality, but what about that political figure over there? He's just blah, 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 right? But when I
mm,
say, wait a minute, if I'm going to really live this, I'm going to say I create what I call reality 100% based on my point of view. The person is being the perfect person. They're playing a role. Maybe they're even an archetype. Heck, they might even be a person that's here to wake us all up, right? And I'm calling them
right?
bad or evil. And so, what am I calling it? Am I accountable for my point of view? And that's not a, we can also bypass like, oh, well, then everything's love and light, and I'm going to pretend like this stuff isn't happening. That's not what I'm saying. But I do create my experience based on what I call it. And 10 people viewing the same situation have 10 different points of view. None of them are wrong. The question is, what is it creating in my life, and what do I really want?
Mm, that was absolutely divinely perfect. Thank you. I'm
Thank you.
like, it was just so good that like I can't even think of how I could ever even expand, except to say that I've done that. I've done the spiritual bypassing. I've done that. I've done the love and light. Oh, love and light, love and light. Oh yeah, yeah. No, no, it did not. Well, what happened is that I couldn't figure out why stuff just was getting worse.
Yeah.
Well, okay, perceivably worse. However, everything
Yeah.
is for my best and highest good. So the things that I was perceiving as not being good. I want to make that clarification too, because really what I really am hearing you say is that you are allowing people to live their life without your judgment call on whether or not that they're doing it right or wrong, including those that in public office. And that is a true state of observance. That's a true
Yeah.
state. Hmm.
Yeah, and what I want to be clear about, that doesn't mean that we're not in the world trying to make change or positive change. My friend Michael Beckwith says we're not here to save the world, we're here to serve the new paradigm. That's a profound shift, and it becomes so simple. And I'm slowing down because I want to speak to this simplicity. When I fight something, not only do I suffer, but it seems like it gets magnified. We live in a culture where we've been trained to fight. It's so deeply ingrained in our conscious and unconscious that many of us aren't even aware that we do it. So when I fight and resist, not only do I experience pain and suffering, but the bottom line is it's not effective. The only way that real change or a real transformation ever truly happens in collective consciousness and in individual spiritual journeys is through shifting into what do I want to create? What do I stand for, not against? And it's really popular these days with social media to opinionate and to say, I'm right and you are wrong, and getting these debates. But what are we really creating? We're really creating division. When I stand for something, there's a powerful shift that can happen. And that's where we start to see an actual shift in consciousness. Another way to say it is I don't change my behavior, my point of view, my experience of life based on what I don't want. I change based on what I do want. Like I work in the addiction treatment field. Conscious Recovery is my book, workbook, system of care. And we focus a lot on what we do want. I think it has a very short shelf life that I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to be out of shape, so I'm going to go to the gym. The only way we really change is when I go to the gym, I feel energized. I love the way I feel. I love the way I look, etc. So in that same way, if we're fighting against either a political system or a group of people, we're actually magnifying that. So this becomes so practical. Real change gets created when we start shifting to what we do want to create rather than what we want to eradicate. And to me, that's the bottom line. Do I want to be a part of helping shift the planet? Can I, when you're in a tug of war, it takes two. Otherwise, the tug of war doesn't exist. And so many of us have been taught to strive, to push, to fight. We might not even be aware of it. But again, the bottom line is, what do I really want? And what can I stand for to help create more of that rather than be against something?
Beautiful. Absolutely extraordinary. How is this sitting? Sing it. Yes, sing it, TJ. Yes, thank you. Watch this. Look at this. Look at this. Sing it, TJ.
Thank you, David.
David, you're so cool. Hi, Mimi. How are you? Hi, everybody. So, here, let's bring this up. When I say I am going to allow someone to be who they are rather than accept them right where they are, it feels a bit egoic.
Okay. So when you, just for a point of clarification, for me, when I say I'm going to accept them, that feels a little more egoic for me because I have a little bit of a judgment, right? And the ego is always judging. That's why, honestly, I'm not even a huge fan of the term mindfulness. It's honestly more like mindlessness, right? Because I'm not going to be living from my mind. I'm going to be aware, but I'm going to be aware from that essential beingness. So rather than saying mindful, maybe we could say beingful.
Would you be beingful?
Beingful Mondays. That doesn't have a nice ring, though.
Magical Mondays.
Magical Monday.
Magical. See, I'm just blow it up, TJ. Just blow it up because I think at this point it's safe to consider that everything just kind of needs to be blown up, and whatever I thought yesterday just isn't true maybe today because I might have a different perspective.
Yeah, and what's
And I
happening
do.
in our world right now is a call for us to look at what's really important. And then it's also very, very seductive for the ego to get into our opinions about what people should be doing and what people shouldn't be doing. Why are we forced to be locked in, which we're not, by the way, but why are people going outside? Why are they not going outside? All the judgments on all the different seeming sides. But the bottom line is we're being given a huge opportunity right now, and that opportunity is to take a moment and slow down and go within and connect very deeply with our essential beingness. Sometimes quotes come through in meditation, and a quote that I just posted, and I'm going to try to get it right. I mean, it came from me, but it came from spirit, right? In a meditation. But when I know my true nature, I'm not imprisoned really by the incessant need of the mind to find purpose or to find meaning, right? My mind is always trying to search for something. And although I think searching for meaning is an important aspect of life, when I really know who and what I am, there's the meaning. Meaning is not a destination, it's a way of being. Peace is not a destination, it's a way of being. Gratitude is not a destination, it's a way of being, right? So we're shifting now into realizing this is an opportunity in our time, in our world, to move within and to, it's not really connect with our true nature because we're never really disconnected. It's about acknowledging my oneness. And then the rest becomes the ever-changing structures of the world. And part of the ever-changing structures of the world is my mind, my thoughts, my beliefs.
Whew. Okay. This is valuable information, everybody. Really super valuable. This is stepping away from the ego in a whole different way. The beingness. So I heard this, I was listening to something today, and when somebody who was getting ready to pass away, to transition, they were asked about something. They were this huge successful person all through their life, and then all of a sudden they decided to, then their time was here. They literally said, all this stuff I've done, all this work I've done, everything I've tried to uncover and explain and blah, blah, blah. And it was all about just being.
Yeah.
I just heard this today. So there's something really super critical here about beingness. Really critical. This is going from the beingness to the state of being. Now, does this all make sense to you guys? Did you understand what it means to just be in that space of being?
Well, and one thing I want to add to that is I think sometimes people hear us saying there's no action to take or we're not really needing anything to be different. So there's a paradox, right? Because in my beingness, there is conscious doing. Conscious being leads to conscious doing. But so many of us, myself included, for many, many, many years, thought I would do my way into being. Right. So let me get out there, make a difference. Let me fight. Let me struggle. Let me, all these different things that were happening. And they have a place. But ultimately, the beingness and resting in that deeper reality, this is the paradox for anyone watching right now. I'm not saying don't make a difference in the world. What I'm saying is when I connect with my beingness, what happens is there's information that gets delivered, if you will. It's really revealed. It's not delivered, right? Enlightenment is not a destination. It's something that gets revealed from within. And when we are really quiet and spending time with our beingness, we get messages that might be much more fruitful than what we might have created in our mind. The mind is really powerful and really important, but for the most part, the mind is living in the past in some way, right? Because it's knowledge, it's memorization of experiences. Very, very useful as long as it's not the dominating part of how we come to, how we make action in the world, the decisions we make. When I'm connected with the sacred beingness of myself, I can really listen. And then we get guided in a really different direction. And it might be surprising what comes up. But what happens is when I listen to that, what emerges from there is much more powerful and much more productive in the world than back when I was thinking I needed to strive or struggle. I remember posting something years ago about in the awakened state, we can let go of the idea that life is a struggle. And someone posted or sent me an email, I believe, and said, I don't think it's okay for you to teach people that life isn't a struggle because there is cancer, there is hunger, there are these horrible things that happen in the world. I don't think it's fair to teach that we don't have to struggle. So let me be clear. We're not pretending like that doesn't exist, but do I really have to struggle? Or can I work with what is? Can I start to work with, for example, if we have a disease like cancer, what happens when I try to fight it? We have this paradigm, I hear it right now. We're fighting this enemy that's this virus. What if we start to work with it? What might happen if we recognize it is something that's happening, but it's not the ultimate truth? We don't have to struggle in life. The only struggle is a belief system in good, bad, right, wrong, and that changes everything. It doesn't mean that some things don't feel difficult or painful or sad, but what it does mean is I can actually move out of the paradigm of life as a struggle and then be more in the flow of life.
Beautiful. Thank you. Wow. It feels so good to know that I have the choice to remove myself from struggle and the viewpoint of that, but rather turn it to a vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a grand opportunity. Never in history have we had such a great opportunity for us to slow down and do exactly what TJ is saying, and that's soak it in. Just be with yourself, take it in, who you are, and come within to your own answers. I know that we are each our own guru. We show up like this because we get to just remind each other how to step into our greatness, and that's what this is about. It's about us reminding each other and loving each other enough to show up and actually share what's working in our own life, and how it's even shifted even through all of the pandemic and everything else that's going on. I want to bring up Cassandra's question because I think it's really good. It says, "How do we sit with our beingness?" And I think that that's a great question, Cassandra. And I know that we covered it a little bit, but let's go ahead and talk about that one more time.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I actually want to invite that that's a great question to live in. I know David's watching right now, and he and I love the conversation of living in the question. He's created a whole deck and a workbook based on living in the questions. Um, I didn't originate it, but it comes out of conscious being and conscious recovery. I talk about it. So I would invite that question, rather than for me to answer it or for even you to answer it, to be curious. What does it mean to sit in my beingness? Maybe I set the timer for 10 minutes and I close my eyes and I sit with, what does it mean to connect with my beingness? What does it mean to sit with my beingness? What is beingness? I like Eckhart Tolle says, and I might be misquoting him, but that's okay. He says, pay attention to the energy field beneath the skin. That is really helpful for me because sometimes we say, well, I'm not my body. Well, I have a body. What is it, though, that's beneath that? Is there an energy field? Is there a frequency? Rather than looking for the answer, be in that question. What is beingness? In my experience, the spiritual journey is really twofold. One, it's that question that you're asking. What is my beingness? What is my true nature? How do I dedicate time to cultivate a profound relationship with that? And then the second part of the spiritual journey is, what do I need to unlearn so that I can remember who I am? Because maybe our beingness is our natural state. And all the other stuff that we've gathered along the way that have felt really useful and maybe have been useful in some incarnations or at some level of our awareness, now we recognize they're also blocking us from really knowing who and what we are.
Mm, I love that. It's our existence. It's our existence. Beingness, being in our existence, not trying to shift or alter or change our existence, but being in the allowingness of our existence is in the beingness of our
Mhm.
existence is what I'm picking up right now from you.
Yeah.
Hmm, I love that. That's just it tickles me pink. And you know why? Listen, doesn't that sound a lot less difficult and the other ways that we were looking at it required a lot of laden, heavy, or at least in my world, heaviness with it. This is like a lighter beingness. It's like light and airy. Beingness. Think about a child and they're playing, like 2 or 3, what do they do? They're in their beingness. They're just being. They're just they're existing.
Well, and
Existing.
I
Yeah.
love that you're saying that, because also something that's really part of the childhood experience is imagination, right? So a child can take this moment and imagine all of this happening in this moment. And for some of us, that we've lost the ability to imagine. So there's a connection, there's a relationship. Now, we can also say their brains aren't developed as much as ours are, so they are more able to be in the moment. That could be true. And I think there's information there, right?
Yeah.
Again, the mind is not good, bad, right, wrong, but it can keep us from remembering that innate experience, that innate beingness, that presence, that openness. And then from there, we start to really reconnect with our imagination. Sometimes quotes are given to people that may or may not have ever said it, but Albert Einstein, the quote that I see posted, whether he said it or not, is imagination is more important than knowledge, right? Because
Yep.
again, knowledge is in our brain. It's a set of ideas that I've collected based in theory on my life experiences. I think more accurately on the programs I was given and then the agreements that I made, right? I love Michael Beckwith says we've made agreements with mediocrity. And the way we move out of those agreements is by connecting very deeply or remembering our innate beingness. We go back to that and then remember being a little child and just being super present and open. And then your imagination is just a natural outpicturing or an expression of what gets created when we're really quiet and present.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for expanding on that. Our imagination is literally I mean, that's like the place we get to go to. In fact, everybody just think about that. And when was the last time you just let yourself trail off and just be in imagination and curiosity? You know, you've got something happening in your life right now. And I don't know if any of you do this, but I used to do this a lot. I could still get caught up in it. And I'd sit there and think of the worst case scenario. Oh my god, go right down the spiral of of vibration and negativity down into the, "Oh my god, well, but if this happens, then this could happen, and then if this happens" right? So what this is allowing, this could allow your imagination. This is what I do now. I shift that into, even if that scenario happened, I'm going to imagine how that I would turn it to be a beautiful experience. Or I'm going to imagine what I do want versus what I don't want, which is what TJ said just a bit ago, which is seriously a key in life, to focus on what you do want. And oh my gosh, yes, Cassandra.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also want to speak to frequency, right? Because we tune into the different frequencies, but they're all within us. Because I think it's really popular right now to talk about like certain people who are toxic and we need to stay away from them. But
Oh
until
yeah,
I
yeah.
move into the knowing that all of it's within me, right? So it's the frequency I'm tuning into, not just outside of myself, but even more importantly, inside. One of the lower frequencies is blame. And there's a lot of it happening in our culture right now. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to speak from my own experience. When I blame someone or someone else, including myself, I am in that frequency of us and them and good and bad. And part of it is, in my experience, I'm using that as a bypass from my emotions. One of the things that's happening in our culture right now is there's a lot that's unknown. Well, the truth is, there's always a lot that's unknown, but our mind loves predictability, right? We try to create external safety, predictability. We have the 3-year plan, the 5-year plan. The truth is, none of us really know. And right now, what's happening in our culture is that's really, really being shown to us. So it's really easy in the experience of, oh, I'm really uncomfortable sitting with the not knowing. So I'm going to blame that person over there. Right now, if you look at social media, if you post certain things, people say, you're being hysterical. If you post something else, someone's saying you're being a virus denier. Let's all shift that conversation. When I can sit with what I'm really experiencing, and I can, through a compassionate lens or a compassionate holding of myself, allow myself to have the human experience of the emotions that are present, while also recognizing there's a place within me that is unharmed and unharmable. When I'm doing that, I am far less likely to externalize and start to blame or opinionate and go into good, bad, right, wrong. Again, we're not pretending like the world isn't happening. What we're doing, though, is unplugging from the collective consciousness and plugging into something much more expansive. When I do that, not only do I have more peace, but I feel like, as right now, there's a tipping point that can happen if we all choose to be conscious, and we can really use this as an opportunity to ask ourselves what we really want. What often I hear when I say something like that, someone might say, well, it sounds like you're being insensitive. There are people that are really suffering right now, whether they're sick or they have a loved one that's sick, or they don't know how they're going to make a living, or they're losing their business. We're not looking away from what's happening in the world. We're actually demonstrating and modeling, because we're all one, how we can have a deep level of compassion for each other, while also recognizing that this is a huge opportunity to look within and create from a much deeper wellspring of knowledge than from here.
Absolutely, because that wellspring of knowledge is, we all have the ability to tap into it.
Yeah.
Every one of us. Let's talk about the mirror. I am online a lot, and I can tend to get, and also just in life, we could experience judgment directed at us, and then the judgment we've talked about are external judgments and our judgments. But what about when the judgment comes at you, and somebody is saying, I think that your vibration, I think you're here, or I think you're here, and maybe I don't think I'm there, but they seem to think that I'm there, and I'm like, I guess I need to go and look at this now. Am I there? And but then the other thought came to me. It's like, or maybe that isn't true for me, and maybe that's a mirror. And how do we deal with the mirror reflection whenever we're in judgment mode? To me, I use it for my own expression. Like I say, I'm if I'm judgy, it's because there's something going on inside of me that I have got to look at. You talked about accountability when we first started this. So if I'm really standing in 100% accountability, I'm not going to look at that other person and say blame, shame, criticism, wrong, bad, stupid, none of that. I'm going to look at myself and say, okay, what's real here? So
Yeah.
the mirror.
Yeah. So to start with, for myself, it's not if I judge, it's when I judge, right? Because that's what the mind does. The mind continually sorts and separates, and good, bad, right, wrong. And people talk about training the mind. And I actually, rather than saying I'm going to train the mind, I witness it, I notice it, I honor it. So for many of us, if we've done some work with the 4 agreements, for example, nothing is personal. What another person thinks of me is a reflection of them, not of me. That's kind of a fun place to be, because I can say, well, your judgment of me has nothing to do with me. It's something about you. But then the mirror is, oh, then that means all of my judgments have more to do with me than the object. Byron Katie talks about the lens, the piece of lint on the lens. And she says, we have been trying for centuries to try to change the world. I think she says, to try to change the world so that we can be happy, but it never works. Because if I have a piece of lint on my lens, it doesn't matter who I'm looking at, that lint gets projected. So I need to be more curious about the lint, not from a place of self-blame. It can be really easy to go into, as Debbie already said, being a judge of the judge. Oh, here I am judging myself for being judgmental. So instead of that, there's my mind doing its thing. It's running out of an old program. I have some of my old programs where I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, the world isn't safe. That was the piece of lint on my lens. So every relationship, I could see how it wasn't safe. Every relationship, I could see how I wasn't lovable. The great news about that is I came to a place where I said, oh my gosh, the common denominator is me. It can be easy to go into self criticism, but instead I said, well, I did go into self criticism and it got really painful. Then I thought, wow, what if rather viewing it as an opportunity to criticize myself, I could recognize if it's true that it's my lens, I can clear it. I can clean it. I can start to look at the world through curiosity rather than judgment. Wow, the energy around that is so much lighter.
Uh, you can clean your lens. Oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody hear that? You get to clean your lens. And
And
let's
it's
talk
much more fun than trying to get Donald Trump to change because good luck, everyone.
it's just not gonna happen. I'm pretty certain. Actually, you know what? That's about as much the idea. I'm single. I've been single for a long while by choice.
Yeah,
And if I do go on a date or if I do go out there and if I find myself thinking, well, he would be great if I just know, just stop.
yeah,
Just stop. The minute that I think that I'm going to step into the dysfunctional space again of trying to tell somebody they need to change in order to suit me and make me happy, that's really just me needing to change it. And I really have been doing some observation of self over the last few years. Where have I been? Where are my happy points? And all those times that I've blamed somebody else for my unhappiness, including my childhood, including my anything to do in my past. So
yeah,
I'm loving these comments, TJ. Let's look at this. Look at this.
yeah.
The common denominator is me. Oh, you guys, isn't this just awesome? I'm loving it. Thank you, Cecile, and thank you, Cassandra, as well. And Hope, look at the world through curiosity instead of judgment. Yes, sign me up for that. In fact, you know what? I will sign you up for that. Go over to tjwoodward.com if you guys want to take a deeper dive. Well, it's true. If you guys want to take like a really serious, if you want to get serious, go sign up for TJ's course. All right. Just do yourselves a favor. I have to say that I've watched in my own life, in my personal existence, in my son's existence, what your work has done by applying the tools and these practices. And it's just a whole new way to look at this. So you guys, TJ, tell them how to get a hold of your course and how to go sign up.
Yeah, and I want to actually also add to that that this course wasn't created because I think I have an answer. It was created because my own life brought me to a place where I was essentially suicidal. I did not know how I was going to stay on planet Earth. It felt too painful. I felt so broken. I felt so damaged. This was well into my recovery after I'd put down drugs and alcohol and thinking, why am I not feeling better? And it's because I viewed myself and the world through this lens of brokenness and I didn't have any way out. And, some profound teachers came into my life and showed me a way out of that darkness. And it's my sincere gift to anyone who wants to try some of these tools on and see if it can work for you in the same way. I'm not suggesting that you have to be suicidal in order to get benefit from these tools, but these are universal principles that I've put together to help someone, help you, help me, help us all to remember the truth and remember the truth and remember the truth that we are whole and complete and that we can unlearn some of these ideas that keep us feeling small. So that was a long way to say you can go to wholehearted.org or tjwoodward.com. The course we're referring to is the Conscious Recovery Experience. It's me walking you through the entire conscious recovery process. And we're doing it 75% off right now because of, there is a lot of uncertainty in the world. So that's another gift that I felt really called to continue that as long as we're doing this shelter in place.
Wow, 75. Seriously? That's like really awesome.
70.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like stumped in this one. I'm like, really? 75% off? That's like Damn, you guys. I highly encourage you to go check that out. Listen, and that wasn't just, I'm not just like, oh, they're going to push another course on me. This is this is life changing stuff. I never stop growing. It's just, it's not even by choice, TJ. I just kind of, every time I wake up, something new is going to happen today. I just know what I can feel like coming. I get to choose though on what that newness is. And
Mhm.
I absolutely cannot recommend TJ enough. I also must say, look at this, look at this. Hope, I love you. Thank you. Oh, wait, wrong one. I still I still love you, and I still we apparently we needed to bring this up again because I made a blooper. You guys saw the live blooper. That's one of the great things about lives. Okay. So Cecile, I love you too. Because she says, I must say, in the few moments I've been in here, TJ has said some profound things. Thank
Thank you, Cecile. Thank you. And I mean, again, I go back to what's profound for me is how it's really helped me on my own journey. And I'm so incredibly grateful to share it. You know, as often as possible, I refer to my first spiritual teacher, Mary Helen. She passed away in 1998, but she was the first person that when I was in the presence of her, I felt the frequency of pure love. It was so almost overwhelming for me because of at the time I felt so broken, but she would look at me and say, darling, you're so precious. Some of the basic principles that have become the foundation for my work came from her and came from all kinds of other spiritual teachers that brought that gift to her, that life is not like, this is an interesting thing, Debbie, that keeps coming up, that life is not a destination, that it's an experience. It's right now. It is a way of being. That's something we could insert any word. Forgiveness is not a destination. It's a way of being. Gratitude, any principle, because I was so out of touch with my essential nature at an early age, because I came into a world that taught me about competition. I remember when I heard people saying racist things or sexist things or homophobic things, my little beingness felt so just violated by that. And I remember shutting down.
you.
And the unfortunate part of that was I separated from my essential nature. And so because I was so disconnected, I looked to the world to try to feel whole again. And so these spiritual practices allow me not to reach a destination, but to return to who and what I am. And that can happen right in this moment. I am whole and complete. That's a very different way of viewing the world.
Rock star. Rock star information, you guys. If this is resonating with you, that's because it's inside of you and you've just been reminded of your
That's
greatness.
exactly right. Yeah.
So when you look at us here sharing with you and you think, huh, I want to be, you are that already.
Yeah.
This is about your choice. And that's what we're reminding you how to do this. Another reason you need to go take his course, just saying. Sorry, teacher. I just have to do that. So we have a question, and I want to thank you, Amanda. I want to thank you. And I love you too. Back at you, Hope. You're awesome. Could you speak about how we begin to heal shame and cultivate self compassion?
Yeah. Shame in conscious recovery. I identify the root causes of addiction. Now, let me back up a little bit. When we talk about addiction, I think we've classically thought we're talking about drug addiction or alcoholism or whatever other way we describe it. But for me, I'm using a really broad definition, and that is, like I said, in my own life, I felt so disconnected from my true nature that I was trying to plug in, like my umbilical cord is in my hand, trying to feed on something or someone, literally in some cases. That could be viewed as addiction. I've identified that one of the root causes of addictive behavior is shame, a belief in our own brokenness. So the question is, how do we start to heal shame, and how do we have compassion for ourselves? And it's interesting because compassion is actually one of the ways we heal shame. And shame lives in secrecy, right? I feel broken but I'm often pretending like I'm not. The strategy for it is to not show. I've buried it so deeply often in my unconscious or my shadow that it's too painful for me to look at. So, the primary way, in my experience, we heal shame is we create a safe space externally and internally to start to authentically and through vulnerability share what's really happening. Uh, I've had the deep honor of working with clients throughout the years and facilitating groups and workshops. And inevitably, when someone has the act of courage to share either what happened to them, a traumatic experience, or their point of view about themselves and the world, when it's a safe place for it to come into the light, that's where shame starts to heal. So the shame spiral is I feel broken, I act broken, I feel more shame because of what I just did, and I'm spiraling downward. The way we interrupt that and start to heal it is, again, it's kind of twofold. One, a safe place to bring it all into the light for the healing, but also, and this is the key component of conscious recovery, underneath all of the shame, we are whole and perfect. We are whole and complete. That recognition, I feel, or my experience is, when I have that recognition, I can also have more courage to bring the shame into the light. Because if I believe I am my shame, right, that shame itself, I am broken, it's going to be really hard for me to let you know that. When I also recognize I do have this experience of shame, but there's also this essential part of me that's still whole and perfect, it creates safety to bring it into the light.
Wow. How does that sit with you, Amanda? Does that resonate? And would you, if you could just share how that resonates, that would be cool. I love that, Jana. Thank you. Yes, we are not broken. And Cassandra says, pretend I'm not feeling broken.
Mm,
I have. I actually, not being broken and not being needing to be fixed applies to the people in your life that you think that need to change and shift and do something different than what they're doing. To allow other people to have their contrast is respect to the human being.
yeah.
Because when I've tried to, even with my own kids, if I want to try and tell them, and I'm guilty of this and I'm working on it really hard, but try to tell them how that they should do something. I mean, that's not my gig, man. They're grown adults, and letting them have their own expression and their own voice and having the respect of allowing them to do that. Just as I want the respect of doing things the way I would do them. I love if somebody says, "Hey, I'd like to offer you guidance." Okay, great. But for the most part, no, not for all parts. In order for me to take 100% accountability, then I also need to know that the space I'm coming from is from within and not outward opinion, nor judgment, nor somebody telling me they think I should do it that way. And then on the flip, respecting people's space to do the same. So the not broken is probably the most valuable piece of information that anybody could give you. At least in my world anyway. That's like big. When you start realizing you're not broken, you know,
Yeah, and what's the opposite of not broken? Whole, right?
whole,
Complete,
complete.
perfect spiritually, and to continue to recognize that, because where we put our attention, that starts to grow. So, yes, there are parts of me that feel broken, but I've already spent a lot of years trying to focus on that, and all it does is create more of it, right? That's why I think some forms of therapy can be useful to a point, right? If we're only doing talk therapy from the mental,
Yeah.
then we can, because I remember in my own journey, I'm like, okay, so now I know I feel unlovable because I came into this world and this is what was going on from mom and this is what was happening with dad and this is what happened in kindergarten, and all of that was incredibly important. But then I reached this place where I'm like, okay, but what do I do with all of this? How do I actually start to heal this? And to me, that's actually what we're talking about here is through compassion, we start to heal the shame. It's not so much about what happened, We're not dismissing what happened. It's more about how I experienced that and what was my mechanism to manage that. In conscious recovery, we don't use the term coping skills or coping mechanism. We call it brilliant strategies. My brilliant strategy was to build a wall. That really did help me, but it also protected me from the love and connection I was looking for. So, yes, it was brilliant. My little 7-year-old did his best, built the wall, walked
Yeah.
around that way for many years, afraid and shut down. Then I can start to say, okay, in what ways has it been brilliant? In what ways is it now not moving me toward what I really desire? Right. So there's something about not using terms like coping mechanism and brilliant and defense mechanism, but to move it into brilliant strategy. And I don't know how I got on that little tangent, but
Uh, I'm so
there it
glad
is.
you did. Oh my gosh, because I'm loving this. I mean, TJ, look, you just this is called the word blow up session, okay?
Mhm.
Blowing it up. This is the great part about life though, is this is expansion. When we're willing to be curious to expand on where we were at and what we were thinking, because yesterday's news is old news.
Mhm.
So how that we're doing things today is awesome. Let's go over here. I want to share. Amanda says, "Beautiful. Thank you so much. I very relate to the shame cycle. What stuck out about what you said for me was how you said that we start to heal in a safe space, and that we are whole and complete in spirit."
Yeah. And it's huge, right? If I'm seeing a counselor or a therapist that isn't seeing me as whole and perfect, what does that create? If I'm part of a community that's focusing more on the brokenness than the wholeness, then what does that create? And I think it's really nuanced. So I want to be clear. It's a paradox. Yes, I am whole and complete spiritually. And because I forgot that in many times of my life, I did all sorts of absurd things that looked really broken. I harmed other people, I harmed myself. I've had to clean some of that up. But the deeper healing is returning to that awareness that I am whole and perfect, unlearning the belief systems, and really getting down to the preciousness of the young me that took on all of this that was an untruth, a core false belief. So looking at each other through the lens of wholeness creates a space where we can start to heal from within, because ultimately we have everything within us to heal, but the paradox is we can't do it alone. That's the true definition of uplifting community. It's not so much that I have a community that has the answers, but if I'm part of a community that is willing to sit in whatever emerges, however uncomfortable it might be, while also knowing in the midst of that there's wholeness, that's when the profound shifts start to happen. And that's what we're standing in right now. We have the possibility of this in a much more expansive way because of what's happening in the world. Inevitably, I think it's Dr. Wayne Dyer that said every spiritual advance I've ever had was preceded by some sort of fall. So if we're looking at like what's happening in the world, I don't think it's happening so that we can wake up, but it is an opportunity for us to wake up in a profound way right now.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful, beautiful segue into our ending. It is almost 4 o'clock. We're almost on the hour. Once again, TJ, you have brought it. You have brought it. You have brought some perspectives that it is my true hope that everybody can really just take a piece of this today.
Mm.
And I just encourage you to apply it and get curious with yourself and just practice. See how it feels. See how it feels. And don't keep what you don't like, and what you do like, grab a hold of it. I want to thank everybody who's just been showing up today with all of these great comments. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Love this. Love this. Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Cecile. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you,
Mhm.
Hope and Daniel and everybody else who if I don't see you, and David and whoever is here, because we're on so many different spaces right now. So again, go to wholehearted.org, or we go to tjwoodward.com. Okay. Right now, you can grab a hold of his course for the redonkulous. I mean, it is redonkulous price, 75% off. Oh my gosh. Seriously? I mean, that's just it. I encourage you, go over, check it out. Take another step in this opportunity you have right now to expand your awareness and to put some more stuff in your toolbox, because that's what this is about. Put some more tools in your toolbox to do this human thing just a little bit better, a little bit easier in your beingness. Human being. We are human beings.
Yes.
So rock
Thank you. Thank
on.
you. Thank you. I so appreciate you, Debbie, and everyone for watching. And I love that we get to do these most Mondays now. What a treat.
It was so much fun. And if anybody missed TJ's recent interview with Marianne Williamson, watch for the replay to be coming up on Conscious Recovery. You make sure that you go over and like the Conscious Recovery page, please, as well. All right, guys, peace out. We'll talk to you soon. You're very welcome, Martin. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.